Some of them watch just one episode of The Biggest Loser, and the people who watch just one episode of The Biggest Loser had a significantly greater dislike of overweight people. If even watching one episode of a show is changing people's minds like that fundamentally, it's reasonable to believe that this is like really like changing the way that we think and interact with the world.
It's behavior, bitches.
Hey guys, it's Liat. Welcome to today's episode of Behavior Bitches podcast. I'm so happy to have you guys back with us this week. We have a lot going on, and before we get into anything going on, you know I like to start off with some reinforcement for myself and the podcast here to keep me going. The podcast is a lot of work, everyone. If you knew what goes into each episode, especially since we've made this a visual podcast, that adds that I actually have to do my makeup in the day. I actually have to get dressed. We have to set up all the backdrop over here. We have to have video editors along. This is now adding plus everything Alan was already doing. So we are trying to make it happen. And I have to say, we got started at 1:02 today and the start time was 1 o'clock. This is the quickest latency I've ever seen from the starting time to when we actually get started. Props to us, everyone behind the stage over here. Nice work. Okay, here's our reinforcement for the day. A nice quick one from Maria Nita Vieira. Thank you for this episode. Great discussions about the ABA and the controversy behind it. I'm assuming this is talking about Sean's episode, which was a good one. If you did not tune in, go tune in. You could hear a response to all the ABA haters out there. Getting into today's show, I'm going to give you an intro, and I think this person will do the speaking for themselves. It's very impressive what they do, and it's a topic that I think a lot of us will be interested in. So our guest today is Professor Danielle Lindemann. She's a Princeton University professor, author, and expert on gender culture, and most importantly for today's convo, reality TV. Her book, True Story, What Reality TV Says About Us, breaks down why we're all so obsessed with the drama, the chaos, and the guilty pleasure of it all. She's been featured in the New York Times, the Washington Post, and Esquire, and today she's here to spill the tea on what reality TV reveals about us. Buckle up, bitches. This one's gonna be good. Welcome to the show, Danielle.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for coming. When I found you, I was so excited. I was like, this has got to be very interesting because all of us are addicted to reality TV.
Me too, myself included.
What are you currently binging?
It's hard during the semester to watch a lot of reality TV. I just finished binging The Traitors, the latest season of The Traitors.
That's the one with Gabby Winham.
Yeah. She was on this season.
I could not get into it. I don't know why. I tried. Does it get better? Like the beginning?
It does. I feel like I have a lot of people who say like, the first couple episodes. Yeah, I think it gets better. I also think the third season is better than if you started with the first season, it wasn't as great.
No, I started with this one with Gabby on
Oh, you started this one with Gabby. Okay.
I don't know. Maybe it was just also maybe I behaviorally I paired it with being on the Peloton. I was like, this is a show I'm going to watch when I'm on the Peloton. I don't like the Peloton. So naturally I didn't like the show. So I didn't keep watching the show, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense.
That could be it. All right. So we're going to do a little bit of this or that in terms of reality TV shows to get to know you because it only makes sense. So if you had to choose one, The Bachelor or Love is Blind?
Oh, to watch? Choose one to watch?
Yeah.
Probably The Bachelor. I mean, it's a classic.
Okay, good. We could talk about that. Survivor or Big Brother?
Survivor. I think, yeah, Survivor's a lot more interesting, I think. I mean, it's just like the challenges are more varied.
I never actually watched Big Brother, but I know people are obsessed.
Yeah.
Real Housewives or Vanderpump?
Oh, Real Housewives, far and away. I'm like a diehard Real Housewives fan.
The Circle or Catfish? Catfish.
I think I was going to say Catfish.
Catfish is my go-to. I'm scrolling on my phone and want to have something on in the background. I love Catfish.
Yeah, you can watch Catfish anytime while you're cleaning, while you're doing anything.
It
Yeah.
doesn't take a lot of focus, and I'm always fascinated about how they find the people for the show to come and, like, tell the truth, but I actually apparently the people who were the catfish are the ones who reach out to MTV to
The
reveal themselves.
catfish.
Like, the person who is, like, having this fake persona reaches out to MTV and is
Oh,
like
and say, like, I'm catfishing somebody?
yes, because I always wonder, I'm like, why the hell would they show their face?
Yeah. Well, why the hell would a lot of people show their face on reality TV? I mean,
Which we will definitely have to get to the function of that behavior today. 90 Day Fiancé or Married at First Sight?
I mean, Married at First Sight has a special place in my heart because there's a sociologist on it, and I'm a sociologist. But I would have to say 90 Day Fiancé.
Like, the sociologist is the one who is oh, the one putting the couples together, right?
So one of the ones, yeah, who's like guiding the couples through is a sociologist, which isn't really what sociologists
Yeah, I was
do,
gonna
but
say, I was like,
not really, no.
can you tell the audience here, because we are an audience, a lot of behavior analysts, maybe psychologists listening in, what does a sociologist typically do?
Yeah, so it's probably different from what you normally see on your show, right? So sociologists, we look at basically how people do things in groups. And they can be small groups, right? So there are sociologists who fundamentally are not very different from behavioral psychologists or social psychologists. And then there are sociologists who study, like entire countries or comparing entire countries. So the scale really varies, but the one thing that we do is study how people behave in groups.
Interesting, because I mean, I guess we are like in behavior analysis, we're looking at how people behave on an individual level. I think maybe that would be the
Yeah.
difference, and you're looking at groups. So you look at things like trends.
Yeah, we can look over time, we can look at trends. But I mean, sometimes we look at the individual level, but it's usually in terms of how the individual relates to the group, which might not be that different from what you
Yeah,
do.
which is really interesting because I remember taking like a women's sociology class in college. I feel like that was a time that I was like really sick with my lupus, so I don't know how much of it I remember.
Wow.
But I remember like it was interesting, and like there's like some like social experiments that we would talk about or different things like that. Does that fit into sociology?
Yeah, some
Like
sociologists
I
use
remember like we
experiments.
like if you like get us to like do weird, interesting things, like the way people would respond. I don't know, it was interesting.
Oh,
That's
they experimented on you as
no,
students?
like they would have us like do something that was like that like deviated from the norm, like
Oh,
out in
breaching
society.
experiments.
Yes, it was
Yeah, that's
something like
yeah.
and it was I just remember that and being like it'd be like something like weird, like let's see how you respond,
Yeah.
like someone like make it seem like you like dropped like a huge load and farted so loud in the in the bathroom stall, and like I just like remember these like and this was like so my type of humor. So but it wasn't like a humor thing. It was like let's just see how the world responds. It was fun.
Oh, yeah.
I don't
That's a
know.
thing. That breaching experiments, that's a sociological thing. Yeah.
I love
To
it.
sort of understand social norms better by violating them.
Yeah, that's like I feel like I do that on a daily basis as like my type of humor to be like what
You do
kind
that on a
of
daily basis.
like how what shock factor can I get from this? So that was a lot of fun. That was my what I remembered of it. Okay, so now that we understand what sociologists do, you obviously have taken an interest in reality TV. So if here we always like to operationally define what is considered reality TV. How would you operationally define it?
Oh, it depends on who you ask, right? So it's a social construct. So, like any social construct, it's kind of blurry. But the way that I define reality TV is it's any television that features one, real people who are acting as themselves. Well, I mean, and that's also a little vague, right? Because they could be scripted in some ways, but it's still people playing themselves. They're not playing characters. And also, the intent needs to be to entertain rather than inform. So, like newscasts would not count as reality TV because the primary intent there supposedly is to inform.
Oh, so this is definitely entertaining and all of us love it. But why are we so obsessed with reality TV? I mean, it is such a big part of our TV nowadays and
Yeah.
our influencers and our celebrities. Like, why are we so obsessed? What is it?
Yeah, it's huge. It's a huge cultural juggernaut, right? And that's why I always find it interesting when people say, like, oh, why do you study reality TV? Who cares about that? I mean, whether you like it or not, right? You have to like understand that it's really changed our culture in fundamental ways. Um, but why do people tune in? I mean, it depends on the person because different people consume reality TV for different reasons. It also depends on the show. So there are the shows that have like, that train wreck factor where you're watching to remind yourself that even though you might have problems, you might have flaws, at least you're not like that train wreck over there. And you can do that like symbolic distancing. But at the same time, the people on these shows resonate with us. Usually because they're often cast to fill these kind of archetypal categories. So there's usually like one person on each show and each cast you can kind of grab onto and say, well, even though this is a zany scenario, I would never be in myself. I'm most like that person, or that person most resonates with me.
So you're like connecting in some sense.
Yeah, so you're connecting with the people on the screen. So we form these, so-called parasocial relationships with the people on these shows where we kind of feel like we know them, especially because they are ostensibly being themselves. They're not playing characters. And but we also form connections with others in response to the shows. So we watch and that kind of brings us into community with other people who watch the same shows. That can be online or in person, at work. And, these kind of transcend the boundaries of gender, race, and class. If I'm at a party and someone is a Real Housewives watcher, that's going to be my friend for the night.
Totally. It really does bring people together. And it's interesting, what you said, different people watch for different reasons. And in behavior, if anyone's studying for the exam, we talk about this, right? In terms of the function of behavior. Like we may do one thing and someone might be doing it for attention while another person's doing that same behavior to escape a situation, right? They're like, I'm gonna do this because I want attention. And someone's like, I'm actually gonna do this because I want to get the hell out of here. But it may look the same to everyone, right? So it's interesting how you talk about these different functions or the different reasons people might be into it. We just use different language. This is what I'm always trying to get to on the podcast is that
Yeah.
like we're in different fields using different words, but we're kind of all saying the same thing at the end of the day. So, with this, the obsession, when they're creating these shows, like I feel like with The Bachelor, and that's one I could say I've watched literally since like the very beginning, like Trista, like way back when. It's
Yeah.
almost been like the same storyline every time, even though this is the most dramatic ending ever. What is it always like? This is the most dramatic season yet, they always say.
Right. And it's the same. Yeah.
Right. Are they setting up the storyline?
Are they setting up the
Not the
storyline?
storyline. Okay, like someone could win, right? But is it like, okay, we have to have our the villain. We have to have the villain. We have to have
Yeah.
the like
Well, they
they're
absolutely, yeah, they cast people to fit. There's a great book on this called Bachelor Nation, and she talks about how they cast people to fit these like archetypal roles, right? So the producers would like literally say, this one's the hot one, this one's the villain. Certainly not the only reality show to do that. Um, because reality shows often traffic in kind of simple stories, right? With like heroes and villains, or the villain that you love to hate. And I think that's one of the reasons they resonate with us, right? Because like you said, the plot is almost always the same every season. It's the same show, but in some ways that can be really comforting.
I mean, when I think about it, not just reality TV, when I'm talking like true crime, like I watch Dateline every
Mhm.
week and it's literally the same storyline every time.
Always the same. It's always the boyfriend or the
It's
husband.
it's
Yeah.
always Lester Holt. It was a beautiful calm town. There was a love triangle. It's like there's always a love triangle, but like you watch it every time until the end and it's like a 2-hour
Mhm.
special. So there is something in this like predictability. Like if we're able to predict, why do you think that we keep doing it?
But I think that is why we keep doing it, right? Because it does tell these simple stories that are stories that we've, seen and heard throughout time. I mean, reality TV isn't the first medium to traffic in these simple stories, right? People have been telling these like very basic stories about here. I mean, Star Wars, for instance, is like a simple story, and at its core, right, it's a story about a hero. Um, and so, yeah, I think that is why, right? Because we sort of, I mean, there might be variation from season to season, and there is drama, which keeps us hooked. But at the same time, it is kind of like a pacifier for us because we do know it is something we can have in the background while we're doing laundry or whatever, right? It is that sort of comforting, undertone in the background.
I remember reading something once, and I can't cite anything, and it wasn't about reality TV. It was about talking about people, especially people with I can't remember the exact article and where I read it, but it was like sometimes people who have like PTSD or like anxiety actually like to watch the same show over and over. So maybe like they watch like Grey's Anatomy consistently or whatever it is because of that predictability piece of like they know what's going to happen. And I feel like maybe there could be some of that here, even though it's like slightly different every time, but it's like I know what's going to happen on The Bachelor. I know who he's gonna like most likely. I know who's gonna get in a fight. I'm wondering if there's that piece at all as well of like we kind of find comfort in that predictability.
For sure, especially in a world where there's so much uncertainty, right? It's nice just to flip on the TV and you know what you're tuning into. Like, you know what you're going to see, and you kind of just let that wash over you.
And okay, with your studying of reality TV, how real is reality TV from what you've seen?
I mean, it depends on the show, right? But I don't think, I get asked that question a lot, and I don't think most people think reality TV is 100% real, right? Like, we're pretty savvy about that in 2025. Like, we kind of know that, like you said, right? Like, people are cast to fill particular roles. There is a certain amount of scripting. It's rarely like literally they have scripts, but there's a certain amount of scripting where producers will like set a scene for them, and then they go in and then they do the scene. The people on the show are plied with, liquor and probing producer questions designed to ignite drama. So I guess if that's your definition of unreal, then it's pretty unreal. But at the same time, I think anything that we produce into a cultural product is not going to be 100% real. It's not going to be a mirror of reality, right? Like even news reports, right? They're picking what stories to tell and how to tell them, or documentaries, they're picking what stories to tell. So, yeah, reality TV isn't really real, but I don't think anything is.
Right. And I mean, just thinking of it when we talk about in our science, we talk about a lot about reactivity. Like naturally, if someone is being watched, like there is going to be that is not going to 100% match to what it would be like in real life. I mean, I'm sure you do adapt to the cameras at a certain point, but still, right? There's something there.
Yeah. It's interesting because if you talk to the people who've been on these shows, they'll often say, at a certain point you don't notice the cameras. But I'm a little skeptical about that. And even if you're not noticing the cameras, you're still reacting to the other stimuli, right? That are being pinged at you. So like the producer's questions, right? Like lack of sleep, you're not allowed to have, any TV or radio or any like contact with the outside world. So that's a very artificial environment.
Right. So I'm just thinking like the amount of like, environmental manipulations they're doing. Then we're going to be like, "Hey, listen, I know that Sarah hates chocolate cake and blah 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 blah. Go deliver this chocolate cake to her." That's like her biggest trigger. Like they're doing those things all the time
Right.
to like evoke these behaviors. I mean, that's what keeps it interesting.
Right, of course. And then they'll say Sarah said terrible things about you, even though Sarah didn't say terrible things about you,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly. So something that they're also like they're manipulating that when I said with environmental manipulations, they're doing, of what we would call like unconditioned reinforcers like sleep, food, drinks, right? That's definitely gonna like change people's behavior, right? It seems like they're not sleeping, all of that.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the show, right? So a show like The Bachelor, for sure, right? And a lot of these shows, they have to have lights on all the time because of the demands of production, right? They're not given any contact with the outside world. It's interesting because people will say that, the people in The Bachelor, like, how can they possibly fall in love with this guy after meeting him for 3 days, But if you're in an environment where all you talk about is this guy and you can't talk about anything else and you don't have any external stimuli and you're just being peppered with questions about this guy, I do see how you could start to think that you're developing feelings
It's
for
kind
him.
of the same things like when you want someone to join a cult. Like you're like, we deprive
Yeah.
them of sleep, we do this. You're gonna be obsessed. You're gonna be obsessed with him. You're gonna like him. We just actually had someone on the show who was a behavior analyst in our field and was a past student, and she was just on The Bachelor. So, like, I had all
Oh,
these
interesting.
questions. I had all these questions. The thing is that, they have to be on with their like, for, like, a year after they, like, have a babysitter with them, so they can't speak too much. So all the questions I wanted answered, I couldn't really ask.
Oh, no.
But, like, that's all the things I wanted to know. I wanted to know,
Right.
like
How the sausage gets made,
yeah, and
yeah.
I'm like, "You're a behavior analyst, like, you gotta talk to me in our language, like, what are they doing there? What is going on?" And so a lot of things I wanted answered, unfortunately, there was like, a presence there that I felt like I couldn't ask some things. And I was like, "Come on." Hey, Behavior Bitches listeners, I just wanted to remind you, in case you're looking at how to study for the BCBA or BCABA exam, at Study Notes ABA, we have the entire collective to help you pass the freaking test. If you like what you hear here over on Behavior Bitches, trust me, it's better at Study Notes ABA. We take you from start point to end point of everything you need to know for the test. We take the notes with you over 12 weeks. We also have video bundles if that doesn't work for you. Our next collective is starting July 7th. Now, if you're watching this later on and this is no longer relevant with July 7th, we are always starting new collectives. And now you might notice that we have some new names because all of our collectives include the pairing pack and the Ultimate Collective Notebook. All things to make your note-taking and studying fun. Head on over to studynotesaba.com and we have it all there waiting for you to pass the freaking test. All of our collective packages have had a glow up, as you may notice. They have more mocks in them, more content, more activities, all the things you're gonna want. And now you could get $50 off if you use coupon code BITCHES. That's BITCHES. Head on over to studynotesaba.com. It's time to pass the effing test. All right. So, with all these reality shows, how do you feel it's affected our influencer culture?
Oh, yeah, I mean, those 2 things go hand in hand, right? Reality TV and influencing. And I don't think it's a coincidence that, if you look at the list of like the top influencers, most of them are people that we know as themselves, right? Not that we know for playing characters. So it really feeds into that, right? Because again, we're developing these parasocial relationships with people who, it's not Kim Kardashian playing a character. I mean, she might be performing in some ways, which is a separate thing, right? But she ostensibly is being herself. So then we can develop that relationship with her when we see her on the screen. And then we can continue the relationship with her in all these other platforms, right? Like we can follow her on like Twitter, Instagram. We can tweet at her. Maybe she'll even tweet back at us. We can buy her products. So that kind of strengthens the relationship that we have with her or that we feel that we have with her.
I mean, and for like a marketing perspective, it's amazing because, we look at this and it's like they're essentially what we use the word like pairing with us. Like they're connecting with us. We feel like they know us. I mean, even like I'm no reality star at all, but like one time I had a meetup for people, like a behavior bitches meetup. I was like, "Hey, come to this bar on this night. Let's all meet up." And the one girl tells me, she's like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you didn't tell me you got a divorce." I'm like, "What do you mean? I've never met you before." She's like, "I felt like we're best friends." And I was like, first of all, I did say it on the podcast. You obviously weren't listening, number one. But it's true. Like you really do feel connected with someone. And so like you've built this like rapport. I guess it's kind of one way though, right? The person like who is
Yeah.
watching. So then when this person like talks about a product or talks about something that they use, it's like, oh it's like my friend's recommending this. So I should get this
The
too.
weird thing is it can feel like it's two-way, right? Because when you're connecting with them on all these platforms, it's like they might even, respond to your comment or respond with an emoji to your comment. So that sort of facilitates this sense of, oh, it's not just one way, right? It's not just I'm like watching Sex in the City and seeing Sarah Jessica Parker play a character and that's the extent of my engagement. That's really a one-way parasocial relationship. But then in these cases, right, it's people we know as themselves. They're coming off the screen and we can engage with them in all these other domains. So it feels more like a two-way relationship.
And it's crazy because I feel like, okay, when we used to see, you know, I don't know, Sandra Bullock on the screen or Julia Roberts, it's like, okay, they're a celebrity, right? Like you felt like this is Hollywood, this is whatever it is. When you see these things, you're like, kind of like my AI image I did of myself the other day. I was like, wait, that is me. I have that potential to look like that. Like it's close enough. and 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 you see these like what is this doing for, like, people's self-esteem also? Because you feel like it's close enough this could be your friend, right? Like, you could do similar things. This might like, it seems like we have things in common. I'm not seeing them as, like, imagining them literally, like, living next to the Hollywood sign. Like, what is this
Right.
doing, like, to society? Like, as I mean, in general.
Yeah. It's often hard to kind of tease out like correlation and causation, right? When you look at people who watch a lot of reality TV and how they're different from people who don't, but they are different in some demonstrable ways. So, like, there's some studies that have shown that there's a correlation between watching a lot of reality TV and being more materialistic. Now, is that because more materialistic people watch reality TV, or is that because it makes them more materialistic? I don't know. But there are some studies that have looked at, like in an experimental way, to kind of the impact of watching reality TV. So, like, there was one study that looked at the show The Biggest Loser, the weight loss show, and it showed that it was an experimental setup. So it was like some of the participants watched like an episode of a nature show, and some of them watched just one episode of The Biggest Loser. And the people who watched just one episode of The Biggest Loser had a significantly greater dislike of overweight people after having seen just one episode. So you can see how, like, if even watching one episode of a show is changing people's minds like that fundamentally, what is reality? We're consuming massive amounts of reality TV. It's reasonable to believe that this is like really like changing the way that we think and interact with the world.
I mean, it has to because this reality TV, I mean, also, even when I look at like my friends' daughters or something who are like 15 now, and I'm like, what the hell? Like, they don't have to go through any awkward stage, like, at all. Like, you have to be this hot at this age. Like, I remember, like, even but like from the first reality show that was like, I'd say it was like The Bachelor. That's like what I imagine as like one of the first. I remember being like, oh my God, these like, they're so beautiful on here. But it was like
Hmm.
it still kind of felt far. It's like there's so many shows, there's so many influencers now. I think like 12-year-old girls are like trying to keep up with it. It
Yeah.
has to
There's
be
I mean, there's
doing
such a
something.
spectrum too, right? Like they're the sort of unattainable influencers who are like just extremely beautiful, right? And then there are people who really feel more like close, like you said, right? Like closer to ourselves or closer to people we know. Yeah. I mean, it would be interesting to see. I guess it's again, it's hard to tease out correlation and causation because so many people are watching reality TV
And
to
then,
see
like,
really like
social
how it
media
affects us.
versus reality
Yeah.
TV is also
Yeah.
hard, right?
And that's also hard. Well, social media definitely has impacts, right, on the younger generation. We know that for sure. But then again, like the social media to reality TV pipeline is basically a circle, right? It's like social media is where influencers go, and influencers, by and large, oftentimes are reality TV related. So,
Is there a prototype of people who are going on reality shows?
yeah, that's a really good question. I feel like that's a better question for a psychologist than for like what is the like the psychological makeup of someone who goes on a reality show? I don't know. I mean, I've seen it suggested you have to have like a little bit of narcissism to go on a reality show, but yeah, I don't know. Not really my area of expertise. I always find it interesting though, because I certainly would not want to go on a reality
I'm like,
show.
"That sounds horrible." I'm like, as soon as they started doing this and, like, picking at my body, doing this, doing that, like, I'm out. Like,
And you have no control over how your image is gonna be, like, what image of you their producers are gonna put out there.
none. And I mean, it is just and then even if the show's bad enough, like fighting with other girls is like you just couldn't pay me enough to like go on a show and fight with other girls, number 1. I'd be like, "I'm out." And then
Yeah.
the aftermath of social media after that, when they're shitting on you,
Yep.
it's brutal.
Yeah.
It's not for the weak. I actually just watched well, actually, I haven't finished. I'm almost done with it. Temptation Island. Have you
Oh,
watched
I
it?
haven't seen it. Well, how's that I mean, I've seen it before, but how's that going?
Okay, I don't know if I'm just, like, judgy, but I'm like so they, like, bring these hot couples on. That's the premise of it. They bring these hot
Right.
couples on, couples that are already having relationship issues, right? And they're like, "I don't know, like, we're thinking if we should stay together or not, blah, blah, blah." The fact that you're on here probably means you're not staying together because, like, if you really cared, whatever, right? And so, like, they send, like they break the boys and the girls up. The girls go to their village, the guys go to their village, but then they bring in, like, these, like, temptresses. Is that the word? How you say it? Tempters.
Yeah.
Temptresses. Like, people ready just to, like, you know, whatever you wanna do, I'm down. And so, it seems like almost everyone the premise of the show is, like, you came in with an unhealthy relationship from the get-go. So, to me, it's like, you basically both are here just to, like, find other people,
Right.
you know? So, I mean, it's kinda interesting, but it's not my best show that I've seen. I think Love Is Blind is more interesting because Love Is Not Blind, apparently.
It's not. No, that's what the show yeah, supposedly they're gonna remove, like, all these barriers of, like, race and class and religion, but they're still there,
As soon as they step
right?
out, they're not there when they're
Yeah.
not there, but as soon as they meet,
So
it's
they
there.
meet, then that's it, right. But, yeah, no, I mean, Temptation Island, but also, you have people again, it's that influencer pipeline, right? So it's, like, people who are going on these shows to, increase their follower count and increase their notoriety. And now that's like people see that as kind of a career that you can build as being a reality star.
It totally is, and it's actually it's like someone on every show almost, like, calls someone out, right? They're like, "Grant, I need to talk to you about something." It's like, "Yeah?" It's like, "I think Jamie's here for to get followers." It's like, "No shit, all of you
Oh,
are."
shit. Yeah,
You
The
know?
Bachelor. That's key, right? Not being here for the right reasons, and the right reasons are, of course, desire to marry someone you've just met.
But,
Yeah.
I realized when we just had, um, this individual who was on The Bachelor on the show, I realized, like, I'm like, I think I was asking the questions kinda like an asshole. Like, I was like, okay, like, assuming, like, of course, like, you're not in love, like, you just were there for 4 weeks, like, the way I was answering. So, like, when it gets to I was like, "Oh, so, like, when it gets to the fantasy suites with the other girls, like, are or when they go home, is it their real homes they're using or are these, like, Airbnbs? Because they always look really nice, you know?" Like, I was asking these questions, like, so, like, inconsiderate, like, being she's like, "I didn't make it there, I don't know," you know?
Mhm.
And I'm like, "Whoa." Like, my head wasn't even going like, "Wait, there's real relationships formed." But, like, but there are. But
It depends what you mean by real. Yeah. I mean, it seems like some of them at least genuinely feel like they're in love.
it's also, like, kinda crazy what's reinforced because they'll be like if one of the girls like, "I don't know that I'm ready to get engaged yet." It's like, she's not here for the right reasons. It's like
Oh, I
as
know.
opposed to being like, all of us have been here for 2 weeks, you
Yeah,
know?
she's reasonable. Yeah.
Like, but, on that show, that's punished. That's like, "You're not here. She needs to go home." If you're not ready to be like, "I will marry you yesterday."
Right.
It's really crazy, all of it, when you, like, think about
Well,
it.
then you look at, how many of these couples actually survive. Well, Trista is still married, right?
She's still
So,
married.
yeah, so we got the one. I
But
mean, there are a few,
but
but
look, there's other variables there, think about it. Like, I don't know if people back then, like, would have been doing it for clout as much. Like, there wasn't social media to the same extent,
it
right?
was a different landscape. I mean, there was always that kind of like subcurrent of people who were on there because they had like, entertainment as even if you look at like Real World, the old school, which my
Throwback.
students have never even heard of Real World, but even like season 1, like most of the people on that show were people who were like musicians and singers or like people who wanted the exposure. Um, but yeah, I mean that's turbocharged now. It's people just going on these shows to increase their follower count.
Since you've done all the research on this, I want you to tell me what are some of the most surprising things you've learned in your research about reality TV?
Oh, what are some of the most surprising things I've learned? Yeah, I mean, there's really interesting research on the differences between people who watch a lot of reality TV and people who don't. So, like, people who watch a lot of reality TV, like I said, are more likely to be materialistic. They're more likely to post on social media. They're more likely to be women, but also like, weird stuff. Like, they're more likely to go hot tubbing on dates. And again, it's like, are they watching these reality shows which feature these copious hot tubs and deciding that that's something they want to do, or right? Like, I don't know, but that's kind of interesting. They're more likely to drink alcohol. So yeah, I mean that's the kind of stuff that really interests me. Like the
I love
what
that.
is reality TV doing to us, and how does it change, our wants and beliefs and values?
That's very interesting. Like, it goes all the way, like, these you don't realize that it's, like, all the way to, like, individual behaviors, like getting in a hot tub.
Yeah, that and like people there was one study that showed that people who watch a lot of reality TV were more likely to think that relationships involved conflict, which I can totally see that happening because I can see that happening with myself when I watch a lot of like conflict-based reality TV, then I'll see like circumstances in my life as involving conflict when they don't in like, like a faculty meeting or like something at work where I'm, that
Like you
seem to
start
like
fighting
more
people.
turbo. It's like, yeah, it's not a tribal council, right? But it feels more like charged than it actually is. So yeah, I can see how that might be happening on like a population level.
No, but that could be unhealthy because I mean, when I think back to
Yeah.
my like toxic relationship in college, I remember like we'd like literally the shittiest together, okay? But we'd like get back, then blah 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 blah, and it'd be like every time we get back, it's like no, we fight so much because we love each other so much. It's like we have so much to fight for, you know? And then
Yeah.
like you're like when you're out of it and you're in something healthier, you're like that is not how a relationship should be.
Right, but media has always valorized these toxic relationships, right? Like there's just so many from movies and TV over the years, right? Like so many examples of it's like they just loved each other so much and that's why their relationship was so volatile.
Yeah, that's what I believed. And then like in hindsight,
Yeah.
it's like LOL, we just sucked.
Yeah.
Okay, we have some people back here who are very Martha's reality TV show obsessed. So she has some questions she wants to ask. I'm going to ask you real quick.
Hi, I'm Martha. I'm Liat's assistant. I'm behind the camera. You guys can't see me. But so my question is, and this is something you guys kind of touched on, that nowadays we watch reality TV and there's like a lot of conversation about like the edit and how somebody's edited and how the producers shape them versus like maybe how they really are, how something actually happened. So I'm kind of interested in how you think like the reality TV landscape has changed for us as viewers since now we are so aware, and because these stars have like social media, they can get on and say like, no, I was edited poorly and that's why I came off this way. So I wonder like how that changes our interactions versus like when, Jersey Shore or something was coming out and it was just like, okay, all these people are crazy, they don't have any chance to say otherwise.
Yeah, so our kind of exposure to the details of the editing, how does that change our viewing experience? Is that the
Right.
question?
Now that we're all editors ourselves on TikTok, you know?
Yeah. I mean, but again, it's like I think it's really diverse in terms of how people are consuming these shows, right? There are definitely people that, at least based on, people that I've talked to. So sometimes people will just are just like consuming them and they're not even thinking about the editing and they're like, like Trista is so sweet and nice, right? So they're just like consuming it on the level of like what it is. And then you sort of get more into the nitty-gritty of people who are really like having to engage with what's happening on the show. Like if you're just watching the show, I've lately been saying that reality TV is almost too much work now because like it's not enough just to watch the show anymore. You have to also be aware, go on social media and be aware of what's happening behind the
Totally.
scenes because half the time on a show like Real Housewives, the conflicts are about the show. And so you're not going to fully understand the conflict unless you're like engaging with social media and understanding where that conflict is coming from. So I do think that changes our experience of watching the show. I think most of us can't just watch it, right? Like at the level of narrative at this point without understanding like all of those backstories. And I do think people are really savvy now, right, about how reality TV is edited. I mean, the number one question or comment I get about reality TV is how real is it or it's not real. And it's true, like it's true, right? Like it's a constructed, like it's an artifact. Um, but again, I think anything that we create, any piece of media is constructed to some extent.
I mean, I think behavior analysts would actually be great. People always are asking me, like, what can I do with my education in behavior analysis outside of working with autism? I think reality TV is a great area to go into. You literally are like a puppet master. You're like, let's turn this behavior on. Oop. Let's put the date card in the middle. Oops. Let's have her take him away again for some more one-on-one time. Let's see what happens after she's had 3 hours with him, you know? Like, it's literally like
Yeah.
turning the behavior on and off. So,
I would just love to see more like psychological work on reality TV, again, because I'm coming from a sociological standpoint. But yeah, like we were talking about, what drives people to go on these shows, right? What was their psychological experience of being on those shows? There's very little research on that.
like, what therapy are they getting after being on the show? Like, sometimes you
Hopefully
see these
some.
girls crying on, like, after the final rose, being like, "I have been so bullied. I haven't been able to leave my house." Like,
Yeah, I mean, they talk about having PTSD.
it's like,
Yeah,
is it worth the followers?
I guess to them.
I don't know. I don't know. Well, that is all I have today, and I know that you have a hard boundary, which I don't usually respect boundaries, so I'm working on
You
it.
don't-
Any of my friends
I
listening?
appreciate your
I'm kidding,
respect.
I'm
Thank
kidding,
you.
I'm kidding. No, this was so interesting. Thank you so much for answering all these questions. Where can everyone find your books and where can they find you?
Yeah, so my book is True Story: What Reality TV Says About Us, and it's available pretty much, on Amazon or wherever books are sold. And you can find me on social media at DJ Lindy, DJLINDEE.
So all of these can be found in our show notes. We'll put it at all where you could find Danielle, where you could find her books and her social media. You do post some interesting things there. That's actually where I found you. So
Oh,
everyone, go check it out. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
thanks for having me.
Of course. All right, guys, you know where you could find us. You could find us on our website, behaviorbitches.com. You could find us on Instagram at Behavior Bitches Podcast, Facebook at Behavior Bitches Podcast, TikTok at Behavior Bitches Podcast. We're pretty consistent. And go leave us 5-star reviews wherever you listen to your podcast. And last but not least, there's a desperate cry. We are building up our YouTube channel and doing a lot of work. So please go subscribe to Behavior Bitches Podcast on YouTube. And that's all we have for you today. So as always, love ya. Mean it.